But these are my 30 favorite roller coasters I've ridden according to 2019 Part 1. Tough video to make, but let's get started. Number 30 is Griffin at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. I haven't ridden this coaster since 2018, but this ride is still an awesome ride in my mind. It is tall, fast, and it's just really fun. It's super smooth. The drop is amazing. You accelerate to 71 miles per hour really fast. The two Immelmans are very solid. And this ride has a water splashdown and a nice color scheme. This ride has some really good things to it. It's not the longest ride, and it's not really known for anything but the drop and the two Immelmans. Well, kind of the Immelmans, mainly the drop, but it's still a really good ride. Number 29 is Superman Ride of Steel, and this is the best coaster at Six Flags America, but is unfortunately a clone, as there is also one at Darien Lake, but this is still a fun ride nevertheless. Superman Ride of Steel has a huge drop, some really good airtime hills, but a few really long helixes, two huge double helixes, and a few straight sections. And the straight sections and the long helixes are fine. I don't really mind them. They were pretty good speed moments on the ride. It was pretty fun. It wasn't really boring or anything, but it is something to note that a lot of people hate about it. But overall, I thought it was a pretty fun ride, but I recommend the front row or towards the front on this coaster rather than towards the back, because the front is smoother on this ride and you will really notice a rattle in the back. Number 28 is Dominator, and this is the B&M Floorless Coaster at Kings Dominion, and is known for having a ton of inversions, and it's really fun in my opinion. The first drop is really fun. The vertical loop is amazing. It has a solid cobra roll and two solid corkscrews. It's pretty smooth. It's pretty fun. It's just overall really fun and solid coaster. It's pure fun, and it's kind of intense. It's just a fun ride. Really like it. Number 27 is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast at Six Flags St. Louis and Six Flags Over Texas. But I'm mainly going to talk about St. Louis's Mr. Freeze because I would put it in the top 30 over Texas's Mr. Freeze. But we'll put them both in here as one. And because they are the same ride, this ride has a really insane backwards launch that's really fun. You launch to 70 miles per hour. Go up a top hat, make a huge bank turn that's similar to a Millennium Force bank turn, and then you spike up this huge vertical spike, and then you do the whole thing over again. It's awesome, but it's kind of short. The St. Louis one is smoother than over Texas's and has a better color scheme, but nevertheless, this is a very fun ride and pretty intense as well. Number 26 is Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure, and this is a behemoth wooden roller coaster there, and one of the largest wooden coasters on the planet in terms of length. This ride is so long, and it's an out and back ride. It takes up just this huge line of land. It's not like a giant square of land it takes up. It's just one long rectangle, and this ride from start to finish is just airtime hill after airtime hill after airtime hill. And I haven't ridden this coaster since 2016, and I know parts of the track have been updated since then by GCI. But overall, this is just a very fun ride. It has some really good airtime moments, and it's just overall a really fun wooden coaster. It isn't the smoothest, but it's really good. Number 25 is Shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas, and you may be thinking, why is this even on the list? Well, this is a tiny old ride, but it packs such a huge punch that I had to put it on the list. It's such a fun ride. The drop is pretty solid. It gives some insane ejector airtime if you're in the back row. The vertical loops are so intense, and they're really powerful. And after the two vertical loops, you go into more insane ejector-filled airtime hills. And if you're in the back rows of this coaster, you will get some of the most insane ejector airtime on any coaster out there. This ride has lap bars even though it goes upside down a few times, which is awesome. Schwarzkopf, thank you for putting lap bars on your trains. instead of over-the-shoulder restraints like some company aerodynamics. But I mean, their rides are meant for over-the-shoulder restraints. These rides have airtime hills. So, yeah. Moving on. Number 24, Banshee at Kings Island. This is my second favorite B&M invert I've ridden, and it's just a fun ride. It has a ton of inversions, and it's just overall a really good ride. It's not as good as other rides on the list, that's why it's so low at 24, but it's still just really good. It has a beautiful color scheme, really good theming for a Cedar Fair roller coaster, and just all the inversions on this coaster are solid. You have multiple vertical loops, a pretzel loop, some twists, some rolls. It's just a really solid roller coaster. Really fun ride. Next at number 23 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Their second best roller coaster in my opinion, not their first. Spoiler alert, Twisted Timbers is on this list and it's way higher and will not be in this video. But Intimidator 305 nevertheless is an awesome ride. But in my opinion, it's another one of those overrated coasters. A lot of people overrate this coaster for its intensity and its just insane turns all over the place. But here's the thing, this ride isn't as long as other Gigas like Fury 325 or Millennium Force or even some B&M Hyper coasters as well that are higher on this list. And it doesn't really deliver the airtime that I really like. I mean, Intensity's awesome. I really like Intensity, but this ride just takes it to another level. Like, it's awesome how much of a level this coaster is intense. It's the most intense coaster I've ridden. You gray out on that first turn, guaranteed, every time. There are so many insane sharp turns throughout the ride. You have a speed airtime hill where you're flying. This ride is just phenomenal in that aspect. It is a bit short, and it's not the most re-rideable, so that's why it's at 23. 22 is Goliath at Six Flags Great America, and I've noticed this coaster has gotten slightly rougher this year, but it's still very smooth nevertheless. This coaster has an awesome drop, several great turns and inversions and airtime hills, everything you want out of an RMC coaster. The only thing that really kills this ride for me is the lack of ride time. It's super short ride, but it really packs so much into its short ride time. This ride is awesome, and despite, for me, I'm not really a big fan of RMC trains and restraints. They are better than over-the-shoulder restraints any day of the week, and overall, this ride is really good. Number 21 is Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, Tampa, and this coaster, in my opinion, is pretty underrated. A lot of people really underrate this coaster. It's just fun. Like, the fun factor of Cheetah Hunt, along with the ride length, makes this coaster super fun. You have 3 really solid launches. They aren't the most intense launches, but they're pretty fun. You have this huge turn section here on the top, in the back of the picture here. That's a really nice, cool looking section. A very nice drop after that. One inversion, some really nice hills and turns. And you're going through the terrain in an out and back layout. This ride it's just really good. It's just a really nice picturesque ride. It's just really good setting. The ride experience overall is solid as well, but I'd have to give a ton of credit to this coaster for its setting and just overall just being so much fun. Number 20 is Manta, and the reason why it's so high on the list compared to other rides is not because of the ride experience itself, which the ride experience is really good. It's intense. The pretzel loop is insane. You have some really nice inversions as well throughout the ride, just like it, with some really nice little rolls throughout the ride. Some really good turns over the water. And this ride also has a really nice color scheme, but what really stands out to me about this flying coaster compared to the other ones, well, one, it's not a clone like Superman Ultimate Flight or Firehawk or Nighthawk or Batwing, anything like that. This ride is unique, and the queue line of this ride is phenomenal. The best queue line on any coaster I've ridden. It has, in the queue line, a bunch of huge fish tanks where you can look at manta rays, sharks, and tons of other fish. And when you're waiting in line, it's really nice just standing there, relaxing, and looking at sea animals. It's really nice, and it's something to do instead of being on your phone when you're waiting in line. There's actually that's like the best theme you can ask for on any roller coaster queue line. Number 19 is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This is an awesome wing coaster, and this coaster back in 2016 and 17 I loved. I was a die-hard Gatekeeper fan, and this ride was so much fun. It was super smooth, the inversions were good, the hang time was good. It was just an overall really good ride. But then 2018 shows up. I get disappointed by this ride. I don't like it. I give it like a 6 out of 10. It's a flop. It's not as good. But then I come back to Cedar Point in 2019 and I love this ride again. And almost every year I come to Cedar Point, 3 out of the 4, I've had really, really good experiences on Gatekeeper. This ride is awesome. It's not as smooth as it used to be like a few years ago, but it's still fairly smooth. And I really do recommend to be on the left side of the train in order to have the best experience over the right side. Really good ride. Number 18 is Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Yet another Cedar Point coaster. Yay, we're giving all the love to Cedar Point. But Cedar Point, they're just so good. They have so many good coasters on this list. But Top Thrill Dragster, it's just a phenomenal ride. 0 to 120 in 3.8 seconds. You launch all the way up to this huge spike, and then you spiral back down to the finish line and end the ride. This coaster is really short and unreliable, but other than that, this ride is amazing. I rode this thing front row at night back in 2016, and it is one of the most unforgettable ride experiences I've ever had. The bugs were flying all over my face, and it was just an awesome time. It was so much fun, and just this ride every time is really worth it no matter how long you wait. I mean, if you wait like a whole entire day to just ride this thing, I mean, I get it, but yeah, it's not worth it if it's a day. Number 17 is Magnum XL 200, and this ride is pretty reliable, unlike Top Thrill Dragster, and never has a line, unlike Top Thrill Dragster. But this ride has some really good moments. It has awesome airtime throughout the ride, especially the second half where it's just ejector airtime hill after ejector airtime hill. And just every single year I go to Cedar Point, I've grown to love this coaster. Just every time I ride it, it gets better and better and better. It's just amazing. Especially at night, this ride gets even more fun. And it's just a fun ride. Like, its fun factor, and it has somewhat decent re-rideability for an aerodynamics coaster because it has lap bars instead of over-the-shoulder restraints, and your head isn't getting knocked back and forth between the restraints, the over-the-shoulder restraint. And just overall, Magnum XL 200, it's a classic. I love the feel of the ride with its classicness. It's not the smoothest. It's probably the bumpiest coaster on this list, besides Shivering Timbers, but and the Beast as well, which is higher. But overall, this ride's just awesome, and I really have a big place in my heart for it. And I can argue it's a bit better than Apollo's Chariot at number 16, but I'd have to give it to Apollo. This is the OG B&M Hypercoaster. This ride has amazing airtime hills throughout the ride. It's just a long, long ride. It just goes on forever. But it's just not quite as good as other B&M Hypercoasters that are higher on the list that provide more than what Apollo's Chariot has to offer. But nevertheless, this is the original B&M Hypercoaster. It's a fun ride. It has great airtime, an awesome drop, nice pre-drop to get some extra speed and momentum before the drop. I wish B&M Hypers today had that, like modern ones like 2020 B&M Hypers, but nevertheless, this ride is really awesome. And that was number 30 through number 16. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, stay tuned for more videos. Next video will be part 2.